It was 3:07 a.m. when the call came through the storm. In the penthouse above Singapore's glittering skyline, billionaire Ethan Cole had not heard his daughter's name in 4 years, not since she vanished after their final fight. But the nurse's voice was calm. "Mr. Cole, you're listed as her only emergency contact." When he reached the hospital, he saw her pale, bruised, unrecognizable. The doctor said it was a fall. But Ethan had built empires by spotting lies, and this lie had his daughter's blood on it. What he didn't know, the man responsible was someone he'd once called brother. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, each drop a small explosion against the glass. Ethan Cole stood in his study, a tumbler of whiskey forgotten in his hand, staring at the city below. 45 years old, worth $3 billion, and utterly alone. His phone vibrated on the mahogany desk. Unknown number. He almost let it ring through spam calls, didn't care about time zones, but something made him answer. "Mr. Cole?" A woman's voice. Professional, but weighted with urgency. "This is Nurse Patricia Chen from Singapore General Hospital. I'm calling about Maya Cole." The glass slipped from his fingers. It didn't shatter, the carpet was too thick for that, but amber liquid spread across white fibers like blood seeping into gauze. "What?" His voice sounded foreign to his own ears. "Sir, you're listed as her only emergency contact. She was admitted 3 hours ago. Her condition is critical, but stable. We need you to come immediately. There must be some mistake." But even as he said it, he was moving, grabbing his keys, his wallet. 4 years of silence. And his name was still the one she'd written down. 4 years, and she'd kept him as the person to call when everything went wrong. "Room 407, surgical ward. Please hurry, Mr. Cole." The line went dead. Ethan stood frozen in the hallway, the phone still pressed to his ear. Maya. His daughter. The girl he'd driven away with his neglect, his obsession with building an empire that meant nothing without someone to share it with. The drive to the hospital passed in a blur of rain and streetlights. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. When had he last seen her? That terrible night in 2021. Her face streaked with tears, screaming that he cared more about his meetings than his own daughter. He'd told her she was being dramatic. She'd left the next morning and never came back. He'd convinced himself she was better off without him. Now, racing through empty streets at 3 in the morning, Ethan realized he'd been lying to himself all along. The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor were too bright, too cold. They turned everyone into ghosts, nurses moving silently in rubber-soled shoes, doctors with clipboards pressed to their chests, families huddled in waiting areas with paper cups of coffee growing cold in their hands. Room 407 was at the end of the hall. Ethan's legs felt like concrete as he approached. Through the small window in the door, he could see her, a figure in the bed, surrounded by machines that beeped in mechanical rhythm. For a wild moment, he thought they'd made a mistake. That couldn't be Maya. Maya was 7 years old, laughing as he pushed her on the swings. Maya was 12, proud in her school uniform on the first day at Methodist Girls' School. Maya was 16, already learning to look through him instead of at him. But the woman in the bed was 24, and she was his daughter. Dr. Melissa Harris met him at the door, her expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Cole, I'm the attending physician. Your daughter sustained multiple contusions, a fractured wrist, and a mild concussion. She says she fell down the stairs in her apartment building." "She says," Ethan repeated. Hearing the emphasis, Dr. Harris's eyes held his for a beat too long. "Yes, that's what she says." He stepped into the room. The machines seemed louder now, each beep a countdown to something he couldn't name. Maya's face was turned away from him, toward the window where rain still streaked the glass. Her left arm was in a cast. Dark bruises painted her cheekbone, purple and yellow. "Maya," he whispered. She didn't move. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down heavily. His hand hovered over hers, the right one, unmarked, but he couldn't make himself touch her. What right did he have? 4 years of silence. 4 years of choosing board meetings over birthdays. Investor calls over her graduation. "I'm sorry," he said to the darkness. "God, Maya, I'm so sorry." The machines kept beeping. The rain kept falling. And Ethan Cole, who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, found himself crying in a hospital room at 4 in the morning, his tears falling on his daughter's blanket like another kind of rain. Memory has a way of returning when you least expect it. Sharp and unforgiving, Ethan sat in that hospital chair and saw Maya at 6 years old, her hand in his as they walked through the funeral home. Her mother's casket had been closed. The cancer had been cruel at the end. But Maya had wanted to leave a drawing. She'd drawn their family, 3 stick figures holding hands under a smiling Sunday. "Mommy's not sick anymore," she'd whispered. "Right, Daddy?" "Right, sweetheart. So it's just us now?" "Just us." It should have been a promise. Instead, it became a lie. After Sarah died, Ethan had thrown himself into Cole Holdings with manic intensity. Every deal closed, every acquisition finalized, every percentage point of growth became a wall he built between himself and the grief, between himself and Maya. The memories came faster now, unbidden. Maya at the dining table, homework spread out, watching the clock. It was 7, then 8, then 9. He'd texted, "Meeting running late. Order delivery." Maya's school play. She'd been cast as the lead. He'd promised to be there. A crisis with the Shanghai office came up an hour before curtain call. When he finally got there, the auditorium was empty except for a janitor sweeping the stage. Her 16th birthday. He'd arranged for his assistant to take her shopping, get her whatever she wanted. Money was easier than presents. She'd thanked him politely, like thanking a stranger who held a door open. And then, the final break. The one he replayed in his mind most nights, when sleep wouldn't come. Maya had been 20, home from her second year at the National University of Singapore. She'd asked him to dinner, just dinner, nothing fancy, just the two of them. He'd agreed. Set the date. But then Richard Hahn, his business partner and oldest friend, had called with news of a potential merger that could double their portfolio value. The meeting was scheduled for the same evening. Maya had sat at the restaurant alone for 2 hours before she stopped answering his apologetic texts. When he got home at midnight, she was waiting in the living room, still dressed for dinner. "You forgot," she'd said quietly. "I didn't forget. Something important came up. More important than me, not a question." "Maya, please be reasonable." "I'm done being reasonable." Her voice had cracked. "I'm done waiting for you to remember you have a daughter. I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt every single time you choose something else over me. You're being dramatic. This is my career." "Your career?" She'd laughed, and it was the saddest sound he'd ever heard. "What about your life, Dad? What about mine? Mom would be so disappointed in you." That had been the line. The one he couldn't forgive. "Don't you dare," he'd said coldly. "Don't you dare speak for your mother. Someone has to, since you barely remember her anymore." She'd left the next morning, moved out while he was in a conference call. All she'd left was a note. "I need to find out who I am when I'm not waiting for you." Pride and pain had kept him from reaching out. Months became years. He'd told himself she'd come back when she was ready. That she needed space. Now, sitting in this hospital room, he understood the truth. He'd let her go because it was easier than admitting he'd failed her. Maya was released from the hospital 3 days later. The doctors wanted to keep her longer, but she insisted on leaving. When they asked where she'd be staying, Ethan said his penthouse before Maya could protest. She was silent during the drive, staring out the window. "I'll set you up in the guest room," Ethan said. "It has its own bathroom, and—" "I need to go to my apartment first," Maya interrupted, "to get some things." Her apartment was in Toa Payoh, a modest neighborhood far from the gleaming towers of the Marina Bay district where Ethan lived. The building was old, paint peeling, with a narrow stairwell that smelled of cooking oil and incense. "This is where you've been living?" Ethan couldn't keep the shock from his voice. Not everyone lives in a penthouse. Maya said flatly, unlocking the door to a studio apartment barely larger than his walk-in closet. While Maya packed a bag in the tiny bathroom, Ethan looked around. The space was clean, but sparse. A futon, a desk with a laptop, a kitchenette with 2 burners, books everywhere, psychology, philosophy, poetry. Nothing about business or economics, he noted. She'd rejected everything he represented. On the desk, half hidden under a textbook, was a stack of papers. Ethan picked them up. They were covered in Maya's handwriting, frantic and uneven. Don't trust him. He's watching me. He knows where I live. Why won't anyone believe me? The same phrases, over and over, in increasingly desperate scrawls. Beneath the papers was a photograph. Old, creased from being folded and unfolded many times. It showed 3 people, a younger Ethan, a teenage Maya smiling awkwardly, and Richard Hahn, his business partner, his oldest friend, the man who'd helped him build Cole Holdings from nothing. Why did Maya have this photo? And why was it hidden under what looked like paranoid ramblings? Ready to go, Maya said from behind him. Ethan turned, holding the photo. Why do you have this? Maya's face went pale. She snatched the photo from his hand. That's private. Maya, these notes. What's going on? Is someone bothering you? End of prison. Just take me to your place, she said, her voice shaking. Please. In the car, Ethan studied his daughter's profile. She was gripping her bag so tightly, her knuckles were white. Whatever had happened to her, it was more than a fall down the stairs. And somehow, impossibly, it seemed to involve Richard Hahn. Maya barely spoke for the first week at Ethan's penthouse. She kept to the guest room, only emerging for meals that she picked at silently before retreating again. Ethan tried to give her space, while battling the urge to demand answers. On the 8th night, he heard screaming. He burst into her room to find Maya sitting up in bed, hyperventilating, eyes wide with terror. The lamp was on. She'd been sleeping with lights on every night, he'd noticed. Maya, it's okay. You're safe. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch her. He was here, she gasped. I saw him in the doorway, watching me. No one's here. It's just us. You're having a nightmare. Not a nightmare. She grabbed his arm, her fingers digging in. Dad. Please. You have to believe me. He's been following me for years. He did this to me. Who? Who's been following you? She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw the little girl who used to believe her father could fix anything. Richard, she whispered. Uncle Richard. The world tilted. What? Richard Hahn, your best friend, your business partner. Her voice was bitter. He's been stalking me since I was in university. At first, it was just. He'd show up where I was. Coffee shops, the library. He said it was coincidence. Then he started sending messages. Then gifts. Then threats, when I wouldn't respond. Ethan felt sick. That's Maya. Richard wouldn't. There it is. She released his arm and laughed, a broken sound. That's exactly why I never told you. Because I knew you'd defend him. Just like you always chose him over me. I'm not defending him. You're calling me a liar without saying the words. Tears streamed down her face. I reported him to campus security twice. They said there wasn't enough evidence. I went to the police. They said his messages weren't explicitly threatening. I changed my number 4 times. He always found the new one. And when I moved to that apartment in Toa Payoh, away from my friends, away from everything, he still found me. Maya. He pushed me down those stairs, Dad. We'd been arguing because he showed up at my door again, and I told him I was going to tell you everything. He said no one would believe me, that you'd choose him. And you know what? He was right. Even now, you're doubting me. Ethan's hands were shaking. Show me proof. messages, anything. I deleted them every time. I couldn't stand seeing them. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers, opened her blocked contacts. The list went on, dozens of numbers. These are all him, different SIM cards. I blocked every one. Jesus Christ. I should have died on those stairs, Maya said quietly. Maybe that would have been easier. Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Why not? You never believed me when I was alive. Why would death be any different? The accusation hung in the air between them, and Ethan, who had spent 4 years telling himself his daughter was better off without him, finally understood what his absence had cost. You're right, he said, his voice breaking. I failed you. I always failed you. But I'm listening now. Tell me everything. Every detail. And I swear to God, Maya, I will make this right. Ethan called Richard the next morning. His voice was steady. Years of negotiations had taught him to mask emotion, but his free hand was clenched so tight he felt his nails draw blood from his palm. Ethan, been trying to reach you for days. Everything all right? Richard's voice was warm, familiar. They'd known each other for 23 years, had built an empire together, stood as best man at each other's weddings. We need to meet. Tonight. The parking garage of Singapore General Hospital, level B3, 9 o'clock. That's oddly specific. What's this about? You'll find out. Come alone. He hung up before Richard could respond. At 8:30, Ethan was already in position, parked in the shadows where he could see the elevator doors. Inspector Leona Ong from the Commercial Affairs Department was on standby, listening through a wire Ethan wore under his shirt. It had taken every connection he had to convince her to help without an official report. But when he'd shown her Maya's blocked contact list and the photos of her injuries, she'd agreed to at least gather evidence. At precisely 9 o'clock, Richard's black Mercedes pulled into the garage. He stepped out in his usual gray suit, perfectly tailored, hair immaculate. 50 years old but looking 40. The man who'd been at Sarah's funeral, who'd sent Maya birthday gifts every year, who'd congratulated Ethan on every business triumph, who'd apparently been terrorizing his daughter for 4 years. Quite the dramatic location, Richard said, approaching. What's going on? You sounded strange on the phone. Where were you last Tuesday night? Ethan asked, without preamble. Richard frowned. Tuesday? I was. Home. I think. Why? You think? Ethan, what is this? My daughter was pushed down a flight of stairs last Tuesday, put in the hospital, nearly killed. God, that's awful. Is she? She says you did it. The words hung in the dim garage. Somewhere above them, a car alarm went off and was silenced. Richard's expression shifted surprise. Then concern. Then something that looked like pity. Oh, Ethan. I heard she'd been having problems. Mental health issues. Paranoia. I didn't realize it had gotten this bad. Don't. Ethan's voice was sharp. Don't you dare dismiss her like that. I'm not dismissing her. I'm worried about her. About you. Richard stepped closer. She's clearly unstable. Making accusations against someone who cares about her. Stay away from my daughter. I haven't been near Maya in years. Not since she started acting erratically. I tried to help her, actually. Reached out a few times to see if she needed anything. She blocked my number. I respected that. You're lying. Richard's face hardened. Am I? Or is your daughter telling you paranoid fantasies because she needs help? Professional help, Ethan. Not validation of her delusions. She has a list of 30 blocked numbers. All you. Different SIM cards. That's absurd. Show me this supposed evidence. I don't need to prove anything to you. I'm telling you. Stay away from Maya, or I go to the police. Richard laughed, actually laughed. With what? A mentally unstable girl's accusations? No evidence? No witnesses? It's her word against mine. Ethan. And my word has built a $3 billion empire. What's hers built? A studio apartment in Toa Payoh? The mask had slipped. Just for a second, but Ethan saw it the contempt, the certainty of his own invincibility. "We're done here," Ethan said, "and we're done as partners. I'll buy you out of Cole Holdings. Name your price. You can't push me out of the company we built together because of your daughter's breakdown. Watch me." Richard smiled then, cold and thin. "You're making a mistake, old friend. But fine. I'll send my lawyers the paperwork. And Ethan, when this blows up in your face, when you realize she's been lying to you, don't come crawling back." He walked to his car, got in, and drove away. The taillights disappeared up the ramp. Ethan stood alone in the garage, shaking with rage and something worse, the terrible suspicion that Richard was right. That he'd built his certainty on nothing but his daughter's word. Then Inspector Ong's voice came through his earpiece. "Mr. Cole, I think we have enough to start an investigation." The way he responded, that wasn't innocence. That was a man who thinks he's untouchable. "What do we do now?" "Now? We build a case. Carefully. Men like Richard Hahn are slippery. But everyone makes mistakes eventually." Ethan looked up at the hospital building, where Maya had lain broken and terrified. "Find them," he said. "Find every mistake he's ever made." Inspector Leona Ong was 43, sharp-eyed, and had spent 15 years investigating white-collar criminals who thought money made them invisible. She approached Richard Hahn's case the way she approached all her cases, methodically, patiently, and with absolute conviction that rich men left trails just like everyone else. "We start with surveillance footage," she told Ethan in her office at the Commercial Affairs Department headquarters. "Your daughter's building, nearby streets, any cameras that might have caught him. Her building probably doesn't have security cameras. It's old. You'd be surprised. Singapore has one of the highest densities of CCTV cameras in the world. We just need to know where to look." It took 3 days to pull the footage from various sources. The HDB building across from Maya's apartment. A shopping center down the street. Traffic cameras at intersections. Inspector Ong's team compiled it into a timeline. What they found made Ethan's blood run cold. Richard Hahn had been to Maya's neighborhood 17 times in the past 6 months. 17 documented visits, always alone, always parking 2 blocks away and walking. On 4 occasions, he'd stood across from her building for extended periods, watching the windows. "It's not illegal to stand on a public street," Inspector Ong cautioned. "But it establishes a pattern of behavior. Combined with Maya's testimony, it's not enough," Ethan said bitterly. "Not yet, but we keep digging." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Richard's executive assistant, Pamela Hutchison. She'd worked for him for 6 years and had grown increasingly uncomfortable with certain tasks he'd asked her to perform. When Inspector Ong questioned her, Pamela initially denied everything. But when shown evidence of Richard's surveillance pattern, she cracked. "He had me track her," Pamela admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "He'd give me her name and ask me to find out where she lived, where she went to school, her phone number when she changed it. I thought it was normal. That he was just keeping tabs on his business partner's daughter. Making sure she was safe." "Did he ever ask you to do anything else?" Inspector Ong pressed. Pamela's hands shook. "He had me buy phones. Prepaid SIM cards. Said they were for business in countries with strict telecom regulations. But now you realize they were for contacting someone who'd blocked his main number?" Yes, the evidence was mounting, but Inspector Ong wanted more. She obtained a warrant for Richard's office computer and personal devices. Ethan wasn't present for the search conflict of interest, since he still technically owned half of Cole Holdings, but Inspector Ong called him 3 hours after the warrant was executed. "We found something," she said. "Can you come to the station?" Richard's office had been immaculate, as expected. But his private laptop, the one he kept in a locked drawer, told a different story. He kept a journal, Inspector Ong explained, her voice tight with disgust. She pulled up a document dated from 4 years ago. It's detailed, obsessive. Ethan read over her shoulder. The 3rd of November 2021. Saw M at the university library today. She didn't notice me. She was reading Sylvia Plath. Such depth in one so young. E doesn't appreciate what he has. She deserves someone who understands her complexity. The 17th of December 2021. Sent M flowers for her birthday. Didn't sign the card. She'll wonder who they're from. Good. Let her think about me. The 8th of February 2022. M blocked my number again. She's testing me. Seeing if I'll persist. Of course I will. Real devotion doesn't quit. The 23rd of July 2024. Found M. New address. Toa Payoh. She thinks she can hide. Doesn't she understand? I'll always find her. We're connected. The entries went on. Hundreds of them. A chronicle of stalking dressed up as affection. The final entry was from the night Maya was injured. The 15th of October, 2025. Confronted M at her apartment. She threatened to tell E everything. Said she'd destroy my reputation, my business. She doesn't understand what we have. I tried to make her see reason. She ran. The stairs. It was an accident. But perhaps it's better this way. She'll learn she needs me. They all learn, eventually. Ethan had to walk away from the computer. His stomach heaved. This was the man he'd trusted for 23 years. The man he'd put before his own daughter. We're arresting him tonight, Inspector Ong said. This journal, combined with the surveillance footage, Pamela's testimony, and Maya's statement, it's enough. Will he go to prison? If I have anything to say about it, yes. Richard Hahn was arrested at 8:30 that evening at his Orchard Road penthouse. The arrest was quiet, professional. He maintained his composure, smiling slightly as they read him his rights. You'll regret this, he said to the officers, all of you. But when they put him in the car and he saw Ethan standing on the sidewalk, watching, his composure cracked. Just for a moment, his face twisted with rage. You chose her over me, he spat through the window. After everything I've done for you, you're right, Ethan said quietly. I did. And I should have done it years ago. The trial of Richard Hahn began on a humid Monday in January 2026. The courtroom was packed journalists, curious onlookers, business associates who couldn't believe the charges. Richard sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, looking more inconvenienced than concerned. Maya testified on the third day. Ethan sat in the gallery, his heart in his throat as his daughter took the stand. She looked small in the witness box, wearing a simple blue dress, her hands folded in her lap. The prosecutor, a woman named Claire Tan, approached gently. Miss Cole, can you tell the court when you first became aware of Richard Hahn's romantic interest in you? Maya's voice was steady. When I was 20. He started appearing places I went. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Singapore's small. But then he started texting me, compliments at first. Then questions about my life. Who I was seeing. Where I was going. How did you respond? I tried to be polite. He was my father's best friend. I didn't want to cause problems. But when he asked me to dinner, alone, I said no. That's when things changed. Changed how? The messages got more frequent, more intense. He'd say things like, you don't know what you're missing. Or, you'll come around eventually. When I blocked his number, he got new ones. When I blocked those, he started sending gifts to my apartment, flowers, jewelry, books with passages highlighted. Things that showed he'd been watching me, learning my habits. Maya's voice wavered slightly. I reported it to campus security. They said they'd talk to him, but nothing changed. I went to the police. They said the messages weren't threatening enough to warrant action. So I moved. Changed my number. Tried to disappear. But he always found me. Did you ever tell your father? No. Maya looked directly at Ethan, her eyes filled with pain. We weren't speaking, and even if we had been, I knew he'd never believe Richard could do something like this. Richard was his partner, his friend. I was just the daughter who'd walked away. Claire Tan let that statement hang in the air. Miss Cole, can you describe what happened on October 15th of last year? Maya took a deep breath. Richard came to my apartment at night. He'd been messaging me all week, saying we needed to talk. I'd been ignoring him. When I heard knocking, I looked through the peephole and saw him. I didn't open the door. He kept knocking. Then he started shouting that he knew I was there, that I couldn't avoid him forever. What did you do? I called out through the door that I was going to call the police. He said they wouldn't do anything that they never did. He was right. So I told him I was going to tell my father everything, that I didn't care if it destroyed their business relationship. I just wanted him to leave me alone. And his response? He got quiet. Then he said, "You'll regret that." I heard footsteps walking away. I thought he'd left. I waited 10 minutes, then opened my door to make sure he was gone. Maya's hands were shaking now. He was waiting around the corner. By the stairs, he grabbed my arm, said I was making a terrible mistake, that my father would never choose me over him. I tried to pull away. We struggled at the top of the stairs. And then what, Miss Cole? He let go, suddenly, and I fell backward. I remember the stairs hitting my back, my head, everything spinning. At the bottom, I looked up and saw him standing at the top, just watching me. Then he left. The defense attorney, a slick man named Marcus Lim, stood for cross-examination. Miss Cole, isn't it true that you've been estranged from your father for 4 years? Yes. And isn't it possible that this entire story, this elaborate tale of stalking, is simply an attempt to get your father's attention? To make yourself the victim so he'll finally pay attention to you? Maya's jaw tightened. No, you have no physical evidence of these supposed messages. You claim to have deleted them all. Convenient, isn't it? I deleted them because seeing them made me sick, because every notification was like being violated all over again, or because they never existed. Marcus Lim smiled. Miss Cole, could it be that you developed an unhealthy fixation on my client? And when he didn't reciprocate, that's disgusting, Maya said, her voice rising. Why would I want attention from a man who terrified me? Perhaps because he was the closest thing to a father figure you had. Given your real father's objection, Claire Tan was on her feet. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained, the judge said sharply. Mr. Lim, rephrase or move on. But the damage was done. Maya's face was flushed, tears threatening. Ethan wanted to leap over the gallery railing and strangle the defense attorney. Yet Maya composed herself. She looked at Richard directly. You don't own me, she said clearly. You never did. And you never will again. The jury returned a verdict after 2 days of deliberation. Guilty on charges of stalking, harassment, and assault causing bodily harm. Richard Hahn was sentenced to 15 years in prison. As they led him away in handcuffs, he didn't look at Maya. He looked at Ethan. This is your fault, he said. You ruined everything. No, Ethan replied. You did. The first therapy session was uncomfortable. Dr. Nathan Pierce specialized in trauma and family dynamics, and he made it clear that healing wouldn't be linear or easy. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, he said in their second session, 6 weeks after the trial. Especially when it's been broken over years. Maya sat on one end of the sofa in Dr. Pierce's office. Ethan sat on the other. A canyon of upholstery between them. Maya, when you think about your father, what's the first emotion that comes up? Dr. Pierce asked. Anger, Maya said immediately. Then, softer. Sadness. Can you elaborate? I'm angry that he chose everything else over me. Work. Money. Richard. I'm sad that I've spent most of my life feeling like I didn't matter to the person who was supposed to love me most. The words cut Ethan to the bone. You did matter. You do. Then why did it take me almost dying for you to show up? It was the question that haunted him every night. Because I'm a coward. Because I told myself, you were better off without me. Because admitting I'd failed you meant admitting I'd failed your mother's memory, and I couldn't face that. So you just gave up on me? Yes. The admission felt like falling. I gave up. I told myself it was what you wanted. But really, it was easier than trying to fix what I'd broken. I'm sorry, Maya. I know that's not enough, but I'm so sorry. Maya wiped her eyes. I waited for you. For years, I waited for you to come after me. To fight for me. And you never did. I should have. God, I should have. Why didn't you? Ethan had thought about this question constantly. I didn't know how. Your mother. She was the one who knew how to connect with you. After she died, I was lost. And instead of learning how to be what you needed, I hid behind work. I convinced myself that providing financially was the same as being present. I was wrong. Dr. Pierce leaned forward. Ethan, what do you want from this process? I want my daughter back. I want a chance to be the father I should have been. And Maya, what do you want? Maya was quiet for a long time. I want to stop feeling like I'm waiting for him to abandon me again. I want to trust that if I let him back in, he won't disappear when something more important comes up. Do you think that's possible? Dr. Pierce asked. I don't know. But I want to find out. It was a start. The therapy sessions continued weekly. Some were productive. Others ended with Maya leaving early, too overwhelmed to continue. But they kept showing up. Gradually, painfully, they began to talk about more than just the hurt, about memories that weren't only painful, about the rare good moments, the few times Ethan had taken young Maya to the Singapore Zoo, where she'd loved the orangutans, the trip to Sentosa when she was 5, before Sarah got sick, when they'd built sandcastles and eaten ice cream until their stomachs hurt. I thought you'd forgotten those days, Maya admitted during one session. I could never forget. I just didn't think I deserved to remember them. 3 months after the trial, Maya agreed to have dinner at Ethan's penthouse. Not therapy. Just dinner. Ethan decided to cook. This was a mistake. He'd never been good in the kitchen. Sarah had done all the cooking, and after her death, he'd relied on restaurants and meal delivery services. But he wanted to try. To show effort, he chose pasta. How hard could pasta be? Very hard, apparently. Maya arrived at 7 to find the kitchen full of smoke, Ethan frantically waving a dish towel at the smoke alarm, and a pot of what had presumably been pasta sauce burnt black on the stove. What happened? Maya asked, hovering in the doorway. I attempted to cook. Ethan looked sheepishly at the disaster. I may have gotten distracted by a work email and forgotten I had something on the stove. Of course you did. But Maya was smiling, almost laughing. I can order something, Ethan said quickly. Whatever you want. No. Maya walked into the kitchen, opened a window to clear the smoke. We're going to cook together. And you're not checking your phone. Deal? Deal. They made spaghetti aglio e olio simple, hard to ruin. Maya showed him how to properly cook garlic without burning it. How to reserve pasta water for the sauce. They worked side by side in the kitchen, and for the first time in years, it felt almost normal. Over dinner, Maya told him about her psychology classes at Noose, her dream of becoming a therapist someday. You'd be good at that, Ethan said. You think so? You've always been empathetic, even when I didn't deserve it. Maya twirled pasta on her fork. Do you remember when Mom died, and I couldn't sleep for weeks? I remember. You'd sit outside my bedroom door. You thought I didn't know, but I could see your shadow under the door. You'd stay there all night, just in case I needed you. Ethan felt his throat tighten. I'd forgotten that. I hadn't. That's the dad I want back. the one who sat outside my door because he couldn't protect me from my nightmares but wanted to be there anyway. I'm trying to be that person again. I know. Maya met his eyes. That's why I'm here. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a door opening. And for now, that was enough. 1 year after the trial, Maya graduated from NUS with honors in psychology. Ethan sat in the audience at the University Cultural Center, watching his daughter cross the stage to receive her diploma, and felt something he hadn't felt in years, pride without regret. After the ceremony, they went to dinner, their weekly tradition now, which Ethan never missed. No matter what meetings came up, no matter what deals needed closing, Thursday nights were sacred. Over dessert, Maya pulled an envelope from her bag. I wrote you something, she said, sliding it across the table. You don't have to read it now. But I wanted you to have it. That night, alone in his penthouse, Ethan opened the letter. Dad, I've started this letter 100 times and deleted it 99. I'm not good at saying things out loud. Not the important things, anyway. So I'm writing them instead. A year ago, I didn't think we'd be here. I didn't think I'd ever be able to sit across a table from you without feeling that familiar ache of waiting for you to leave. But somehow, week by week, dinner by dinner, you've shown up. You've stayed. I'm not going to pretend everything's perfect. I still have nightmares. I still flinch sometimes when I hear footsteps behind me. I still struggle to trust that the people I care about won't hurt me. Therapy helps. Time helps. But mostly, having you actually present in my life helps. You're not the dad I had as a child. That person's gone. And I've accepted that. But you're becoming someone new. Someone who asks about my day and remembers the answers. Someone who burns pasta and doesn't check his phone during dinner. Someone who shows up. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forget the years we lost. The birthdays, the graduations, the nights I needed you and you weren't there. That pain is part of me now, woven into who I've become. But here's what I've learned. Forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about deciding the past doesn't get to write the future. So I'm deciding. I'm choosing to believe you when you say you're not going anywhere. I'm choosing to let you in, even though it's terrifying. I'm choosing to see the effort you're making. Not just the years you didn't. I don't know if we'll ever have what we lost. But maybe we can build something new. Something different. But still good. Love, Maya. Ethan read the letter 3 times, then carefully folded it and placed it in the drawer of his bedside table, next to the only photograph he had of Sarah, himself, and a young Maya back when his family was whole, and he didn't yet know how badly he could break it. The next Thursday, when Maya arrived for dinner, Ethan had something to show her. I did something today, he said, pulling up a document on his laptop. What? I stepped down as CEO of Cole Holdings, appointed a successor. I'm keeping majority ownership but giving up day-to-day operations. Maya stared at him. Why? Because I spent 20 years building a company and lost my family doing it. The company doesn't need me anymore. But you do. And I need you. He closed the laptop. I can't get back the time we lost, but I can make sure I don't waste the time we have left. Dad, you don't have to. I want to. For the first time in 20 years, I know exactly what I want, and it's not another deal or another zero on my net worth. It's Thursday dinners. It's being someone you can count on. It's being your father. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I have therapy at 4 tomorrow. Would you want to come with me? Not because Dr. Pierce asked. Because I'm asking. I'd love to. She hugged him then, the first time she'd initiated physical contact since before their estrangement. Ethan held his daughter and felt, for the first time in years, like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. That night, after Maya left, Ethan stood at his penthouse windows, overlooking Singapore's skyline, the city he'd conquered. The empire he'd built, the success that had cost him everything that mattered. But below, in the warm glow of streetlights, People were walking home to families. Couples held hands. Parents carried sleeping children. The city wasn't just glass towers and billion-dollar deals. It was life. Messy, complicated, beautiful life. His phone buzzed. A message from Maya. Don't burn the apartment down before next week. Still have so much to teach you about cooking. He smiled and typed back. I'll try. No promises. See you Thursday. Always Thursday, she replied. You promised. Always, he confirmed. And Ethan Cole, who had spent decades making promises he didn't keep, finally understood what the word meant.